Oh, hello. Welcome to another Kill Team Shower Thoughts video. We haven't had one of these in a little while. And today I'm going to be talking about 1 year on, is the compendium still relevant? So you might reasonably ask, why are we talking about the compendium now? We've just finished, or we will have on Saturday when Morok comes out, the first year of the release schedule for Kill Team. And we have a dozen bespoke teams now. We might get one more in White Dwarf. I'm still hopeful that we'll get another team or two in White Dwarf, but we have finished our 1 year roadmap. However, the compendium still looms large for new players. You know, people who are coming into the game to try it out still, which is still happening, the game is still growing. Their initial sort of port of call is going to be the compendium because they've already got a 40k army in many cases. And those people that are coming over from 40k that want to give the game a go perhaps don't want to start off by buying, into a bespoke team, which is a little bit more of an intimidating thing. Especially as if, let's be fair, you're trying to onboard them into Kill Team, you're going to point them towards the compendium rules on Wikipedia or somewhere and tell them they can just grab models from their 40k army and have a great time. Is that totally true? But I also think it's easy for people to spend a lot of time thinking about Kill Team, as I do, and other people who sort of are active in the community online, to completely write off the compendium teams and say, compendium isn't the game, we don't even think about the compendium, it's all about those dozen bespoke teams. But let's really dig into it. So I'm not going to do a tier list as such. It has kind of worked out like a bit of a tier list at the end of the day, but I'm not really qualified to talk about what's competitively good, and data and win rates and things like that have a role to play. Generally speaking, I subscribe to the view that bespoke teams are all basically balanced against each other, and it's only within the compendium that we have this wide disparate nature where some of the teams are truly awful. I think actually, yeah, of course, skilled players can tier the bespoke teams. I'm not saying it's impossible to do that, but I also think that it's a very fine grading system. I think once you get into the compendium, it's far less granular. There are some teams that are just really comically bad, and there are some that are pretty damn good. And so this video really is my attempt to go through that from a point of view of, I'm not talking about the team's ability to go top 4, I'm not talking about their ability to win events, I'm just want you to have a nice time. Either in a play group having a nice time, or taking it to a tournament having a nice time. I've had play groups, I've known of a play group that's basically struggled to really get going because some people stuck with really lackluster compendium teams and through no fault of their own, lost game after game after game to bespoke teams, and that's put them off Kill Team. And they don't understand, if you don't immerse yourself in the online discourse around a game, you're going to assume that everything's balanced with everything else, right? You're going to assume that the experience is supposed to work, and if after half a dozen games you haven't got a single win, it's going to turn you off the game. I've also had people come into the Discord and say, I'm getting started, what would you recommend? And we had a little bit of discussion about whether it was worth recommending the compendium as a starting point or whether you're better jumping in with a bespoke team. So let's talk a little bit about that. So we're going to go through each of the teams one by one. And we start with Space Marines. Now, Space Marines are a real difficult one to review. There's a reason I haven't done a sort of Space Marines first impression Kill Team video, because the Space Marines compendium team is basically 9 distinct teams. Unlike every other team in the compendium, you've got your 9 different fire teams, but you can only pick one. If you want to run Space Marines, the thing you're trying to play into with them is the fact that you can roster deep, and then you pick an entirely distinct team based on your matchup. So, in theory, you look at the person across the table from you and you go, okay, against you I fancy the Assault Intercessors, in you it's going to be the regular Intercessors, that kind of thing. But there are some real things to understand with the Space Marine team. First of all, the upcoming Phobos team in Morok is going to do this far better for Reavers, Infiltrators and Incursors. So if you're drawn towards those 3 Phobos fire teams from the compendium, You take all three, mix and match them in a Phobos list, and you'll have from Morok, and you'll have a far better time with it. Tacticals and Scouts are hurt by not being able to roster with Deathwatch because of a little wrinkle in the rules where you have to assign technically you have to assign a chapter keyword to all the teams, right? But it doesn't do anything except for Space Marines, where it does lock you out. If you pick Deathwatch, it locks you out of rostering any tacticals or scouts, and if you pick any other chapter apart from Deathwatch, it locks you out from picking the Deathwatch. So that hurts them a little bit. Tacticals have further been, they used to have a place, and then when the Bard's Data Slate came out and raised everything else up to 6 Marines, Tactical's thing of having a couple of extra bodies became much less of a thing, and they feel a lot more redundant, especially compared to Deathwatch now. Deathwatch do have play. Don't know what that hyphen's doing there. Okay, but Deathwatch do have play. If you build into Bolter Discipline, you've got to build them. You've got to abandon all the fancy looking tech and go into their bolters and their ammo selectors and take a heavy bolter, and you're building into using Bolter Discipline nearly every turn and trying to build a shooting team that way. Gun to my head, if I had to play Compendium Marines, I'd roster Deathwatch and Assault Intercessors, and I'd have some Deathwatch coloured Assault Intercessors, and then I would pick, depending on what I was against, I'd take some version of the Deathwatch in most games. I'd maybe take the Assault Intercessors against Harelequins, and I'd give it a go. The problem is, what I guess is, if you really want to play Compendium Marines, though, it's probably because you want to play your guys, because maybe you love Blood Angels or Dark Angels or Space Wolves. I'm being told, oh, I guess you can just start make Space Marines viable, but you kind of have to play Deathwatch, isn't what you want to hear, because if you wanted to play Deathwatch, you're probably already doing it. So Space Marines I rate as frustrating. They are annoying to play, they have a terrible win rate, there are things that you can do with them if you force yourself to play into certain narrow meta builds, but people who want to play Space Marines, people who want to play Compendium Space Marines, probably don't want to play those narrow meta builds. They probably want to play, 6 Intercessors painted in the colour of their choice because they identify strongly with their chapter. So yeah, I rate Space Marines as frustrating. Grey Knights, on the other hand, I meant to say on all these slides where I can, I've tried to put in images from our little group. So the first slide there, those were my Crimson Fist Space Marines. That was the Space Marine Kill Team project. That was the last thing I was working on for Kill Team 2018 that I've kind of abandoned. I don't know where half of them are, but it was the best representation I had of a sort of plain old Space Marine Kill Team. These, of course, are Zimbad's Grey Knights conversions, and they are amazing. Really, really good. Really, really nice conversions. They're nicely painted as well, but the conversions really rock my world. If you wanted to play Compendium Space Marines, if as I was reading through that last slide, it sounded great to you from a mechanical point of view, just play Grey Knights instead. You don't have to worry about rostering different things for different situations, because Grey Knights are really good at shooting and they're really good at combat. Right? So you don't have to go, oh, shall I pick Deathwatch or oh, shall I pick Assault Intercessors? You can just do both. It's fine. They have Stormbolters, which means they can reroll all their misses, which makes them super consistent. Okay? And they also have their Psychic Powers on top. They are combat shooting in one package, and they have an armory they can actually all use. So one of the biggest problems with the Space Marines is that they have the same page count dedicated to their equipment list, but so much of their equipment is like, oh, well, Reavers only, oh, Intercessors only, oh, this only, that only, and therefore any one fire team, you only have an option of like 2 pieces of equipment. Grey Knights can use their entire armory. Again, you want to build for Bolter Discipline. You want to take all Storm Bolters, the frag cannon and things like that is a trap. Okay, go all Storm Bolters, build it for Bolter Discipline, and you'll have a pretty good time, I think, with Grey Knights. I rank them as fun. I think you should feel able to take them to events and play them. I think Zimbad is actually thinking of taking his Grey Knights pictured here to Nottingham in 2 weeks to the Warhammer World Tournament, and I'll let you know in my tournament report like how he gets on with that. But I rate Grey Knights as a fun team. Imperial Guard. 9 times out of 10 I'd tell you to go Vet Guard. The only reason I haven't given them a ranking of pointless is because Scions are an option, and they do play distinctly differently from the way the Vet Guard play. They're a more elite team with a 4-up save that hit on 3s. if you love Scions, I think you could probably have fun trying to make double Scions work, but ultimately, for me, there's just not enough there. They've got their orders, and there's some kind of confusion about where... I think this is basically settled now with successive FAQs. For a long time, there was some confusion about how Scion orders work. I believe they can just be ordered from anywhere on the battlefield. Let me know in the comments if that's not right, with their personal radios. If you really want to play Scions, and that's how I'm using the Guard Compendium team, I think you can make Scions work. I have previously rumoured that I think the next new plastic team is going to be Karskin, which will probably relegate Scions themselves into the pointless category. But until then, yeah, I think you can have a go with these, but I think you may lose every game. I think it's going to be an uphill struggle, but if you really, really practice with them and get the reps in, you could do okay with Scions, I think. These are my my Stormtrooper kill team, converted across from Kill Team 18. Not actually played any games of Kill Team 21 with them, but they are there. I enjoy the models, I enjoy painting them, I enjoy having them on my shelf. Yeah, if you think I'm wrong, if you think Scions have got some play, let me know in the comments. While you're down there, if you could subscribe, we're so close to 500 subscribers, that would really make my week. Alright, thanks guys. Forge World, really quickly, two things to say here. One is that no one in our playgroup has got any painted Forge World miniatures. It's an oversight. I think one of these days, if no one else gets around to it, I'm going to do not Forge World, but I will do a Hunter Clade kill team, just so that we've got them available to us when we're playing against each other. Forge World have been officially removed from competitive play by Games Workshop. Everything you can do with them, you can do better with the bespoke team. Pointless. Ecclesiarchy. 10 bodies with power armor is a thing, okay? So you've got 10 bodies with power armor, and they've all got bolters, and then you can take a melter gun, you can take a heavy bolter, you can take a storm bolter, you can take a plasma pistol on the leader. Like, it's a very basic but quite strong team. I don't think there's quite enough there to be really competitive with them, but you can't say that they've been replaced by the novitiates. The novitiates play totally differently. So I rate Ecclesiarchy as uphill struggle. I think if you like them and you like the way they play, you should take them and play them. Just be aware that you're kind of playing at a bit of a disadvantage, but I don't think it's a tragic disadvantage. Talons. I have to say, so I keep forgetting to mention the photographs. The previous one was my Sisters of Battle, you've probably seen before. These are my Talons. Sorry for the awful photograph. They're actually at my desk at work at the moment, where I run a little Warhammer club at school, and this was the best photo I could find that I'd already taken on my phone. Talons are a shadow of their former selves. They were heavily nerfed in the early days of Kill Team. I think it will be really interesting to unnerf them somewhat and to give them like some of their stuff back and see how they went against the modern bespoke teams. But I do think of them as a gatekeeper team. I think that you have to have an answer to a custode, right? Some bespoke teams truly struggle to bring down a single custodian. Like, I remember playing against these with my novitiates at the team tournament, and you'd charge and you'd do some wounds and then you'd be killed, and then you'd have to charge again and do some wounds and then be killed, and the only really answer to them is the crack grenades, the plasma guns and things like that. But if you're not bristling with those things, you will struggle to take down a custodian. And yeah, you can say, or play around them, you know, but if they have security, if they're doing things, if they're scoring points just for being in a place, it is a real struggle to just ignore them. Sisters of Silence can do the 10 bodies, power armor and bolter thing, but honestly, Sisters of Battle are going to be better at that job. They've got access to special weapons that aren't flamers. Although in theory you could run 10 Sisters of Silence with 10 flamers and see if that was funny, but I wouldn't advise it. I would, if I was running them, I would run 2 Custodians and 5 Sisters. I think that's the play. I think 4 Custodians you can make work. I think 10 Sisters you can't make work. But overall I rate them as fun. I think if you took them to an event you'd have a good time. And you might lose every game, but you wouldn't get absolutely throat stomped. You know, you would have fun, close games. Yeah, I give them a rating of fun. Heretic Astartes, pointless. They've not actually been removed from the game by Games Workshop in an FAQ, but everything that they can do, you can do better with the bespoke team. Yes, the reason they've not been removed is that they are the only team that gives you the option to mix mortals and marines, but nobody was doing that. Like, it's not worth it. Don't take 6 marines. They've kind of had their things stolen as well a little bit, because compendium Heretic Astartes, for a while they were the only elite team that could go to 6 marines, and a lot of the others were stuck at 5. So that gave them a little bit of a bonus, but now they're kind of pointless and irrelevant. Sorry. These are Mrs. Tabletop Impulse's compendium word bearers that she used to run. She's obviously adding to those now with some of the more nice bespoke bits and pieces from the last release, but these were her compendium word bearers, and they are pretty lovely. Death Guard. Here are my Death Guard. You've seen them before on the channel. Really pleased with how these guys came out. I think Death Guard are a fun team. I think you can do really well with Compendium Death Guard. They have a thing, right? They have 5 up, feel no pain. They have a gimmick, and a lot of the Compendium teams don't have a gimmick. They're just the stat lines on parade. Death Guard have a gimmick. They have their 5 up, feel no pain. It lets them punch above their weight. Yes, they're slow with their 2 circle of move, but they have 3 APL, so they can always be moving and dashing, and they've got that bell piece of equipment that I've talked about before that lets them get a big movement boost on the first turn. So I really don't think Death Guard have a massive handicap, unless you for some reason take Poxwalkers. Taking Poxwalkers is a mistake, especially now that Death Guard can take 6 Plague Marines if you don't take Poxwalkers. But I think overall I give Death Guard a rating of fun. Thousand Suns, pointless. Officially removed from competitive play by Games Workshop because you can do everything with the bespoke team. Here are Zimbad's Thousand Suns that he had when he was running out of the compendium. Really nice model. He's got a totally new set of Thousand Suns now, but I don't think he finished, or I didn't have any pictures of those to hand, but these are the ones that best fit with this slide because they're for the compendium anyway. Yeah, nothing wrong with them, just that the Warp Coven do it better. Chaos Deamons. Chaos Deamons might be one of the most underrated teams in the game. There's not many people that talk about them. Demonettes are a trap. Don't take the Demonette fire team. Always be taking a Bloodletter fire team. For my money, Bloodletters and Plague Bearers is the best combination for this team. But the Horrors have their place because they have the shooting attacks. I really like Plague Bearers. I think they're really solid. They all have their 5 invulnerable saves. Gives them a bit of something to do. They've got positionals and they've got the musician, and they've got the icon bearers as well. I think you can have great fun with Chaos Demons if you like them. Take them, run them, and you'll have a nice time. Craftworld Eldar. No painted miniatures. Sorry, the previous ones were Mrs. T.I.'s Deamons. She has never actually used them in Kill Team, but she has them for an army. Craftworld Eldar. None of us have any painted Craftworld Eldar. Craftworld Eldar are underpowered. They are underpowered, and I know that people don't want to hear it because people really like, especially with the new Eldar models that have come out, people want to make them work. There might be something with 2 Guardian Fire teams, because since the balanced age to slay, you can get 12 models and you try and load up on grenades. There's not enough there to make them really playable. I rank Craftworld Eldar as frustrating. I think if you try and play them, you're going to have a frustrating time. It's all about this list really. It's all about your player experience. Okay, you're going to have a frustrating time if you pick Craftworld Eldar. Drukhari. So Drukhari have a good selection of specialist weapons. They have a great ploy in Power from Pain. I happen to know, even though we're not talking about competition, that they placed well at LVO, which was kind of notable because no one, as I say, everyone was writing off the compendium teams, and they might be one of the strongest compendium teams in the book. So definitely rate them as fun. That's your experience you're going to have. You take them to an event, you play them in your main play group. I reckon Drukhari are a solid team, and the picture is my Drukhari team, the team that I mained all through Kill Team 18. Yeah, I think Drukhari are great fun. Harelequins, very quickly. So Mrs. T.I.'s Harelequins, officially removed from play, competitive play by GW. Everything that they can do that. Well, now this is I will dwell slightly. The bespoke team does most things better. Compendium Harlequins could take more than 1 fusion pistol, so if they hadn't been removed by Games Workshop in the FAQ, we could actually have a discussion about whether or not there was ever a situation when these were better. To be honest, it's kind of the same for the compendium mechanicum, who could double up on plasma guns as well. So, but they have been removed, so they get an automatic ranking of pointless. Orks, I'm going to get a little bit of a complaint here, because I know there's at least one avid follower of this channel who's active in my Discord who loves compendium orcs. These are Zimbad's commandos, because they are the only painted orcs that any of us seem to have. I know that their commandos are not compendium orcs, but it's something to illustrate the slide. I don't think it's worth playing compendium orcs, because even if you don't like the fluff around commandos, even if you were to just take commandos and load up on the basic warriors and use different models, you'd still have a better time than trying to use compendium orcs. Just because there's more rules there, I don't see the point to use. You know, even it's your hobby and it's your fluff, but I think even if you had a totally different orc warband, maybe their theme, they're all goths or they're all snake bites or whatever it is, try and make them fit the commando rules, and you're gonna have a better time. You're going to have a better time. You don't have to take the squig if you don't want to. I know people don't like him. You don't need to take the optimal team. You don't need to take necessarily the Breacher Boy or whatever it is. But look at the orcs that you have and see if you can make them fit into the commando rules. And I think overall you're going to have a better time. I think there's a trap people fall into where they have the models or they have the theme they want to play, and instead of building a suboptimal commandos list to run that team, they'd rather try and build an optimal greenskins list, compendium orcs, greenskins, and actually they'd be better off just building a fluffy but suboptimal list using the commandos rules, in my opinion. So orcs get a rating of pointless. Necrons get a rating of frustrating. So none of us have any painted Necrons, unfortunately. Necrons are too slow. They have interesting mechanics, and they did get a buff in terms of not having to pay for resurrection protocols, but I just find them too difficult to play with their 2 circle of movement and nothing really that they can do much about that. I really want to see, more than any other team, I want to see their bespoke team, their White Dwarf team, because I think Necrons, the sort of space undead thing, they have really interesting design space. I think they could be a really interesting and cool team. But as they are now in the compendium, I feel like I have to rank them as frustrating. The Tau Empire. If you're playing Compendium Tau, the only reason to do it is because you really want to play with stealth suits. Stealth suits can do things. They are quite a unique team, and they bring a unique play experience that you don't get with any other team, but ultimately they aren't very good. So I give them a rank of uphill struggle. If you really, really want to, and you've got the practice in with them, have a go. But ultimately, you're not going to have a great time, but you may at least get a couple of close games. Kroot are really bad. Like, Kroots are just phenomenally bad. These are Zimbad's Kroot. He painted some Kroot. We played a game with Kroot. I played a really bad game and still won. Like, he is a better player than me. He played a really good game. I played an awful game and I still won because Kroot just, you can't, there is nothing there. There is nothing there to make them work. If you've ever won a game of Kill Team with Kroot, leave me a comment explaining what you were doing, and was the person that you were playing against asleep or like 7 years old? Like, what? They're just awful. Truly. Tyranids. I think Tyranids were a really popular and powerful team early doors. These, by the way, are Mrs. Tabletop Impulse's Tyranids. She had a big Tyranid team. It was her main team in Kill Team 2018. It was Genestealers and Lictors. She doesn't want to try them again now because the Lictors have been lost, and she loves her Lictors. But the 10 Genestealer team was a popular, powerful team early doors. I think the team has play. I think they're going half Genestealers and half Hormagaunts, I want to say, where they can get the acid breath, the flamethrower acid breath attack. I think that's a really powerful build. I think that you can have great fun with Tyranids. I've certainly been beaten with them. I mean, I'm not claiming that I'm a great player, but I have been beaten with them with a bespoke team of my own. So yeah, I rate Tyranids fun. If you take them to an event, play with your main play group, you're going to have a pretty fun time. Genestealer Cult, very quickly, are pointless. Everything you can do with Genestealer Cult, you do better with its bespoke team. Unless you really want to run metamorphs, but it's just super not worth losing out on the cool characters and the cool rules, the cool equipment, just to get a couple of metamorphs in your list. It's not worthwhile. Genestealer Cult get a rank of pointless. So let's sum that up. And there are some obvious things that have happened. I didn't think about this in advance. I kind of was going through it off the cuff. If we look at the pointless column, first of all, we see basically the teams that Games Workshop have either removed from the game because they've replaced them or effectively replaced them. We see every White Dwarf team here in Forge World, the Heretic Astartes, the Thousand Sons, the Harelequins, the Genestealer Cult, because the nature of a White Dwarf team is it tends to be very similar in character and play style to the team it replaces, but just better with more rules. Orks as well are the slight outlier in that they were replaced by a plastic box team, but I just feel that what the Orks have in their compendium team just doesn't quite, there's nothing there that excites me and is special about them that you couldn't emulate better with the bespoke team. So then we go into the frustrating column. Space Marines, Craftworld Eldar, Necrons and Kroot. These are all teams that if you really love, I mean, I know Space Marines have just got the Phobos, but they're such a broad thing that they've got into frustrating rather than pointless, because I'm not prepared to say all Marine players should play Phobos, because if you love Deathwatch, if you love Intercessors, if you love Tactical Marines, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to try and play Space Marines. They've not been adequately replaced and upgraded, but they're a really poor team. The same with Craftworld Eldar. Yes, I know the Corsairs exist, but they're not really the same thing. They're not really playing the same way. I think there are a lot of people out there that are going to try and play Craftworld Eldar, and they're going to be frustrated. Necrons and Kroot have nothing else that goes over them that makes them, that is equivalent to them, and they're just both really bad, really difficult teams to play. So I consider them to be the four most frustrating teams in the compendium. And it's funny because a friend of mine in the playgroup where it nearly collapsed, one of the people in the playgroup literally was like, "Oh, I'm going to play Space Marine," and we lost with Space Marines. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to pivot to Craftworld Eldar," and I'm like, how do you pick these teams that are just no good? If you're listening, are you now planning to pivot to, actually, I know he's planning to pivot to Phobos because I finally convinced him. You know, but I was waiting to get the message like, "Oh, I'm going to give Kroot a try." Yeah, that's a path to frustration, those four teams. Then we got the uphill struggle kind of column. Imperial Guard, remember, if you're playing the Stormtroopers, the Ecclesiarchy with the 10 Sisters squad, and the Tau Empire with the stealth suits. These, all three of them, are basically builds that you can do that are wildly different from the bespoke team. So Imperial Guard, Ecclesiarchy and Tau all have a powerful, very powerful bespoke team. All three of them have a really powerful bespoke team, but the bespoke team is texturally very different from things that you can do with the compendium, and so I can see why people might want to try and play the compendium, and I think their compendium builds are kind of middling, right? They're kind of okay. I think you might be able to make them work, so I put them in the uphill struggle box. If you're really driven by Stormtroopers or Power Armored Sisters or stealth suits, and you don't mind not having the sort of depth of rules, then maybe you would give them a go. And then finally, in the column where I think actually it's pleasing to see that it's the joint longest column. You've got the Grey Knights, the Talons of Death Guard, the Chaos Demons, the Drukhari, and the Tyranids that I think are all sort of fun, viable picks to take to an event that nobody will give you kind of side eye for choosing to play. I think you can have a good time with those. I think you can win some games or at least have some close losses. And yeah, they are, for my pick, they are the strong teams. Those six are the strong teams in the compendium that I think remain interesting and relevant to the meta today. So that's really the conclusion. Would you still recommend well, that's a question, isn't it? Would you still recommend the compendium to somebody? The thing is, as more bespoke teams come out, if indeed more bespoke teams are going to come out, more of these teams are going to end up in the pointless category. And as that happens, the book loses value. So think about the value proposition as well. All right, final thoughts. If you think I'm dastardly wrong, if your favourite team is Kroot, please come on down in the comments. I love Kroot. I've won 20 games with Kroot. I'm going to go and place at Wild World with Kroot. Tell me, would you genuinely recommend the compendium to a new player? I guess it's interesting. We've got the piracy dimension, so the rules are there for free. And maybe if they were pirating it on using Wikipedia as a stepping stone to getting in with a proper team, just to teach them the dice, that's one thing. But actually advise a new player to go all in on a compendium team. Maybe if they were one of the ones that they really liked was in that fun column. But even then, as good as those teams are, you do run the risk that the bespoke list's going to come out and make a pointless team overnight. But no, I hope you enjoyed the video. The channel's going really, really well. As I've said, we're at nearly 500 subscribers. It'd be great to get up to 500 subscribers. If you could help out with that, I would love that. We've been live streaming 2 nights a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and of course, really looking forward to the Morok release on Saturday tomorrow. Hope you've enjoyed this kind of return for the shower thoughts rambly video. Would love to see your comments and feedback. Hope you have a great day. Cheerio, everybody.